Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And we have a special guest in the studio in the Geek Out Lair with us. Hey! You know, we've referenced Corey over at Image Comics quite a bit. She's definitely a friend of ours, and she's been great with us. And I mean, hell, she gets Jake pizza from the other side of the continent.
That's right.
So, and she happens to be in town, so we've got her in the studio. Everybody say hi to Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, it's been a pretty interesting week. We just got a new Avengers trailer for Age of Ultron. I think it's like the last full-length trailer we're getting because that movie comes out in 2 months. Do you guys get a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, I checked it out. I think the day that it dropped, I got a chance to see it. Then I watched it again today since I figured we were going to be talking about it. I feel like a lot of new, exciting information was in it too. You know, we kind of got to see Ultron's lair. I feel,
yeah,
you know,
and kind of like that. We've always seen those like poster images, those teaser images of the Avengers literally being swarmed by Ultron robots, and we now know in the movie that apparently actually happens.
Yeah,
shit tons of Ultron robots just descending,
yeah.
and for all those people that were there's that great money shot of like, you know, all those Avengers just doing that charge, and when you see that trailer, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see that someone added Spider-Man to that?
I did.
And it was pretty spooky. I remember it
was good Photoshop
I think
quality.
it's out of the scene at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Electro, and they're like fighting, and like when they do the
in the pylons.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everyone was talking about that shot before it even happened. You know, before you even saw the trailer, like you'll know, it's in the snow. Oh, you'll know. And I knew because when it happened, it only happens for like a second. Like it's quick. But there's this shot of them, you know, leaping and lunging and being the Avengers, you know, and being a comic book sprung to life, like, you know, Joss Whedon does so well. So yeah, and you know, we also got the first glimpse. Really, I mean, it was just a glimpse. It was like a nanosecond of the Vision.
And he got a glimpse at us.
Yeah. Speaking of glimpses, we also got a first look at Melissa Benoist as Supergirl.
Yeah,
not in the Avengers trailer.
Right. They dropped 2 promotional photos of her all done up in her costume, and I actually think it looks pretty cool.
Here's what I think, and Corey, I mean, I know you read Supergirl, and you're a huge Superman fan, so what I really like about the costume for the show, provided they stick with it, is it's not really fetishized or sexualized, no bare midriff, and you know, it's not, the mini skirt isn't that mini,
and she even has like dark leggings on too. It's not even like bare thighs.
Yeah, and what I like about that is I always hated in the comics how sometimes they'll sexualize Supergirl like on like covers or in like these really suggestive poses. It's like, guys, you know she's like a teenager, right? Like this crossed your mind, right? So I really appreciate not seeing like this really hypersexualized image of Supergirl, and I'm really excited. You know, Laura Benatti as her mom is a great Tony Award-winning actress. So yeah, I'm really excited about that sort of thing.
Well, I think it's going to just bring such a big new audience to something that might have been enough to push parents away from, you know, bringing their kids in or having it be something that's a family-oriented show. But also I think what more importantly, they seem to be kind of sticking with the Man of Steel color palette, and I think that's really interesting.
Very dark.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing a more collective feel to the DC universe, because it's something that Marvel is doing really well right now, and I think DC is doing their best with their television universe, maybe not in their cinematic universe yet, but for all of the people who've seen Man of Steel, we recognize that color palette immediately, and it was something that was like, oh, okay, cool. And it really...
Yeah, kind of almost screams like corporate synergy.
Right. And I mean, I really liked the Man of Steel like outfit. I was really a huge fan of it.
Even minus thread trunks.
Even minus thread trunks. So, gotta say, never been a fan of the
Sam,
trunks.
you're like the only one that loves those.
I love the red trunks. I will say that the one thing, jumping on the Man of Steel color palette and look, it definitely has that, which is awesome. But one thing it has, which is more the original thing, is the emblem. The S on the chest looks straight out of the comic book. It doesn't have that organic looking kind of S that we saw in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Because
weird, almost textured.
Yeah, it actually and it doesn't have the yellow backdrop either. It's just kind of cool, just the red and the blue. And like Sam was saying too, I haven't read much Supergirl. I just started reading the New 52 stuff in trade and actually really, really enjoying it. But it was something too that I kind of, you'd see it and, you know, she'd have these like boots going up to like her thighs, like in the New 52 with like, but then the kneecap is showing through the boot in this weird like, you know, shape. And then, you know, it's this, you know, she's basically going around in like bikini bottoms, and it's like, this is ceremonial garb for Kryptonians. Like, you know, necessarily it was never meant for her to fight in, but you know, the dress or the skirt at least makes, you know, I always kind of like the skirt. I was joking, I was wishing they were going to have the headband and rock like the 80s look with a super curly
Christ on Infinite Earths.
yeah,
Yeah.
super permed Supergirl. But between seeing Melissa in Whiplash and reading the New 52 Supergirl stuff, I'm super excited. I'm hoping getting that feeling of like, you know, like a Smallville type feel where it's like really honing in on the mythos of Superman and Supergirl and Krypton and what it means, because she has such a different upbringing and story than Superman does. You know, if they're going to stick more to the comics thing where she's not here as a baby and grows up. You know, she comes here as a teenager and has the powers there immediately, and it's something that it's a much more shocking, jarring thing than where, you know, baby Kal is allowed to grow up and become Clark Kent.
He grows into Superman, whereas Kara Zor-El, Supergirl's already formed, who by and large, as much as your typical teenager has, formed her identity by the time she, you know, gets to Earth and forms those powers.
I mean, I hope they go the protoplasm storyline style.
Oh, Death of Superman style?
Yeah.
That was always weird. And then there was Sir-El which was like
who was like there for
clone.
like 2 seconds and then disappeared.
I think the only story I've read with Sir-El was the first Superman Batman story arc where they take on President Luthor. She shows up for like an issue.
She's in like a later issue of that as well.
Oh yeah.
Real close to the end of the run. Like I have more or less all of those issues, and she pops in like one more time, and those are the only times that I have ever seen her in comic book form. Period.
Yeah. Interesting character.
Well, sorry, Chris. Check out the New 52 stuff, because I haven't caught up, but I've read the first 2 volumes, and it's cool because another tragedy thing about her is, unlike Superman, she remembers Krypton. You know, she remembers her parents. She remembers what it's like to live. Yeah, it's for her. You know, she remembers holding, as far as she knew, baby Kal-El in her arms, and then she comes to Earth, and there's this man wearing the coat of arms saying it's Kal-El as like a 30 or late 20-year-old guy. It freaks her out, you know. And so it's cool, even though they come from the same place, they have very different ideas and very, you know, and also technically on Earth, Superman's older than her, but she's older than him in reality. So there's this weird kind of, mentality and weird kind of relationship between the two of them that's really fascinating.
She was supposed to help protect and raise him, and then she comes out and he's like in his late 20s, like in New 52 continuity, he's like 10 years older than her. It's like, oh, okay. But which is really jarring.
Yeah, now, I personally did read up, I think, almost like the first 30 issues of it, basically up until the point where she became like part of the Red Lanterns. Yeah. And I still enjoyed it. I just kind of lost
didn't keep up.
I ran out of money to keep buying comic books constantly, and
on a regular
I'm waiting to cash up and maybe get some trades or something like that. But that, and also like then like she started being in like the Red Lantern books, and I was like, oh, do I have to start following that too? And
that was the thing I always kind of like. I enjoyed the Lantern books by and large, but I didn't like how every year, honestly, I feel like in some ways they took some of the wrong lessons from Sinestro Corps War, where you have to read every Lantern book to get the full story. It isn't like, say, you could get away theoretically reading World Without Superman. You would, by reading just single titles, you would only get, say, Steel's story or the Eradicator story or Superboy or Cyborg Superman. And who the hell wants the Cyborg Superman story? But okay. You do?
Yeah, he ends up, I mean, spoilers, but he ends up being the bad guy.
20 years later.
Yeah, you kind of need, the Steel is the one that's like, out of all of those stories, I think, Steel's storyline is probably the most quote-unquote useless.
Yeah, him or Superboy, really.
Yeah.
Because the Eradicator helps resurrect Superman. And
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. But
the definitive reading list for the Return of Superman.
But that's the thing, right? All the with Lights Out, which was one of the big Green Lantern story arcs, one of the more recent ones. You had to read Green Lantern and Red Lantern and Green Lantern Corps and all that, and it's like I don't want to.
Yeah, no. When I started the New 52, like I loved Green Lantern. That was Jeff Johns, right?
Oh yeah.
He was killing it. And like it made me want to check out some of the other ones, especially when they like started doing some of the storylines that were all inclusive.
Yeah, Wrath of the First Lantern.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, let me check out these other ones, and they just weren't up to snuff.
Yeah, some stories are like again, Sinestro Corps War.
Yeah,
that is awesome. That's like the Empire Strikes Back of Green Lantern stories. If you've never read Sinestro Corps War, first off, make sure you read Green Lantern Rebirth, and then read Sinestro Corps War, and it's like,
and of course, if you're gonna read Green Lantern Rebirth, then you might as well just read all of Emerald Twilight.
Emerald Twilight's good. I mean, it's certainly good basis. I feel like Rebirth, though, you could kind of go in a little more fresh.
No, I'm just making a joke because that's one of my favorite, that is my favorite Green Lantern.
And there is obviously a lot of ties between those two stories.
And then, all the stuff in between and just 0 Hour.
Decades, Final Night.
Yeah.
Day of Judgment, maybe not Day of Judgment.
Yeah, maybe not Day.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jeff Johns.
I mean, you kind of need Day of Judgment if you really want the whole wrapping in of why the Spectre gives a shit.
Yeah. But Corey, this has been a big week for Image Comics. You just saw the first issue. I mean, I don't know if you personally saw it. You probably had shitloads in the office, but of Descender #1 debut this week, and it's already been approved for a second printing.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. I mean, I think all of you guys know Jeff Lemire is, by and large, probably my favorite writer out there. I think actually that was the first time we met.
All the three of us.
When I sprung up.
I had
actually,
not accidentally.
No, you tell the story.
Yeah. It wasn't accidental, but we were with another friend, and he had said something about Sweet Tooth. And this is when Corey was working at the shop that I'm not working at, but this is way before I was even a sub there. And she like pops out from behind a shelf like a whack-a-mole, and she's like, Jeff Lemire? And she comes over, like, Jeff Lemire. She's like, we don't have any, we'll get some more later. And then I remember the funny thing is I came in the next time with a different friend. I think it was Sam, and you came like running over and you were like, here's the books you were talking about with Jeff Lemire. And I was like, I didn't know much about, Jeff Lemire. I wasn't reading this, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Who's Jeff Lemire? But the one book that you did let me borrow, and this is crazy that you did this because
you barely knew us.
You gave me.
You started about talking about Jeff Lemire. I instantly trust you.
That's the.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you gave me your copy to read of Essex County, signed by Jeff Lemire with a drawing, and it like inscribed to you. It's like the girl with the purple hair, right? I think it's like
in plastic,
and I was like, oh, and it was like like the fucking Bible. And
it's like opening like the it's like when they lift the Ark of the Covenant out of the Well of Souls.
It's like in National Treasure when they steal the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. Exactly like it.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. And more Nicolas Cage the better. But you were like, you need to read this. And I remember I was like, oh my God, like, all I had like when I got home was that like I'm gonna spill something on this. I'm gonna come home and the cat's gonna have eaten the whole thing and died. Like
on it,
I died on it, and
like in the shell,
in the shell, and the cat's just like, it was good, and then just like, and so I was like freaking out. And so I remember I would keep the book like in a cabinet, like in an area so no one can get to it. Because I was like, I just met Corey. This is totally gonna happen. Anyway, it didn't, thank God. And I read it, and like it's a book that and
it changed your life.
It did, because I mean, just recently, that's a book we still. So we have a shelf at the shop of like trades that us as employees always recommend to people. You're always gonna have some great. For me, you're gonna have great Superman stories, great Batman stories, Green Lantern. Then you get some like pulp stuff. But one book that's always on there.
Are you the one that puts all the pulp stuff on there?
Yes. The reason Death of Zorro.
Wait, what? Yeah. Jake likes pulp comics?
It's kind of shocking. But the Death of Zorro, the reason it's up there, that's me. But the Lone Ranger and the Death of Zorro. But Essex County is still up there. And that's one that we're never taking down because like that's such an easy sell to just be like, and it's funny because the same kind of thing probably happened to me that happens when I hand off a book to somebody. They see something, because it's a thick book, like it's a brick.
Oh, I was intimidated. When
me too. But then Corey was like, no, it's like you'll appreciate just the pages and just the art, because Jeff Lemire does everything in the book, and it's this kind of hometown story and hockey and brotherhood. Like I really embraced the brotherhood aspect of it, and sports and competitive stuff too, from being a kid and my brother and I playing baseball together. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, and that spawned, Sweet Tooth from there on. I finally did read Sweet Tooth and other Jeff Lemire books. And, he came on and saved Green Arrow's ass on the New 52. I remember we talked about that. Like, we were freaking out that Green Arrow was going to get canceled. And then the next day they were like, oh, Green Arrow was trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
I was like, did he die? Like, why is Green Arrow on?
Is DC just like, you know what? We don't need to write any more stories with this character.
It was because Jeff, and now he's doing, the Marvel's Archer with Hawkeye. But
that's a great debut, too.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. It's a good week to be Jeff Lemire, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those things that he was one of those creators that I really wanted to have a book come out from Image, and when I heard he was going to be doing something with Image, I was so excited because because
you had started working at Image before they announced Descender?
They announced Descender. It was actually my first time working with Image. I wasn't officially an employee yet, but they had me. I'd already been hired. I just hadn't started, and they said, "Hey, come on out and work San Diego." It'll be a good way for you to meet everybody, kind of get a feel for what everyone's about, and it's no better way to get to know people than a high pressure situation, let me tell you. But
no atheists in foxholes, even though that's not a relative.
It's funny because I know what you're talking about, but that means nothing right now. So I got it. Good
Best
job.
Analogy.
But we did like an impromptu kind of Image Expo the day before San Diego. And that's when Jeff Lemire announced it. And I remember them showing the picture. It's of Tim, the little robot boy, who's just looking up into space. And I was like, oh, man. Because, I mean, anyone who's read Sweet Tooth or read Essex County, Jeff Lemire. And, like, writing a little boy, I mean, you're doomed. You're going to cry all over the place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was really excited. And then Dustin Nguyen, I mean, his watercolor work is just incredible. But
I loved his work on, certainly the Batman titles.
Mm-hmm. And so when we got that announced, and a couple weeks ago months ago rather, we had the first issue kind of going around the office just in a PDF, and I was so excited, and we were all like, man, this is going to be huge. And then when it got optioned, it was just, the idea of, and that's something I think that's interesting about
I feel like a lot of Image books are getting optioned from like Go.
They are, yeah. And it will be interesting as once those start actually being released, is I think you're going to see where people are learning about comics is different than finding like, oh, well, I'm going to go see the Avengers. These are people they've been exposed to, characters they've known their whole lives, might not know much about, but they know the name Captain America. They know, the Hulk. But I think now it'll be more about the creators. Be like, oh, well, who's Jeff Lemire and what has he done? Same with Scott Snyder with Witches getting optioned. I think...
I mean, of course, Kirkman had kind of changed TV,
right?
With
Yeah,
Walking Dead, which we've talked about, at length, and I think everybody forgets that's an Image book.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really exciting when we start seeing some of the projects actually hitting like mass markets and seeing where the general public responds, and if they do what they did with Walking Dead, where they go, hey, I need the comic, I can't wait till next season. I got to find out what's happening, because I think that's really been
Now, honestly, all three of you guys have worked in comics retail. Did you see an uptick in Walking Dead sales during, like, right after a finale or during
yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's kind of the Walking Dead. Basically, I don't have to know when it's gonna premiere, because I can just tell, because you'll have a buttload of people coming in buying the first volume and a buttload of people buying the last volume. And that's usually like the week before the start of the return of the show, or mid-season, or after a big event. But usually you can tell, because there's a huge, and we always keep, that's I think out of all the books that we have in the shop, the most copies of a single book tend to be The Walking Dead, because that's something that at any time it's going to sell, and it sells itself, largely because of the TV show.
Yeah, and with my shop, I was mostly in our warehouse sending out online orders, and the Walking Dead was like the only comic book that we could not keep back issues of. Like X-Men Volume 2, number 1, we had like 8 long boxes full of just like the 4 or 5 different covers.
I have every single variant cover.
Yeah.
That's worth nothing.
Nothing. But yeah, so, like a big name like X-Men, we would have like shelves and shelves full of back issues from them, partially because there's just so many issues that it could be, but also partially because they don't move as quickly, they print so much more. But like Image being a smaller, publisher, they'll print like, basically they'll print just enough for the demand that they have. So like I'd be walking around trying to pick out all these back issues, and I'd have to spend 10 minutes in like X-Men or something like that, just trying to find the right one. But like Walking Dead was like half a short box, and I was like, oh, okay, here's the 12 issues that we still have of this, because it's just flying off the shelves.
Right. You know the cool thing about your shop, Chris? You would get variant covers by J. Scott Campbell.
Yeah, we specifically for our shop.
Yeah.
I
love me some J. Scott.
Yeah, they would have
variant
giant
covers.
logos for Midtown Comics on them.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. The has Saga been optioned? Because that's the other big Image comic seller.
No, it's obviously one of the ones that have been most sought out after by production companies, but I think they're really, really waiting till they find someone they feel like is going to do it justice, and they're not so concerned about having that get out there. They want that story to be told, and not some version of that story.
I know Jason Aaron was doing something because he had sat on Scalped for a long time. And that's a Vertigo title, but it's still like a creator-owned title. And I know that he was waiting for the right offer. And I feel like Scott Snyder was doing the same thing with American Vampire, but his Image title, Witches, has been optioned for a film. And then you've got Sex Criminals, which I've talked about at length on this show because it's awesome, has been optioned for I just love Sex Criminals, guys.
I've never heard of Sex Criminals. Tell me more about it.
I will tell you about the fourth printing cover for issue 1, which unfortunately was not drawn by J. Scott Campbell.
Nor was it a Midtown Comics exclusive.
Yeah. No, I mean it's an interesting world. I thought there would be more of an uptick of it after the success of V for Vendetta about I guess that was 9 years ago now. 9 years ago this month. Wow, that's old. Sheesh. But but yeah, and I feel like that is going to, of course, Secret Service is a Mark Miller title, and now he's writing for Image, and I feel like his stuff is always getting optioned. So yeah, it's been a very interesting period for Image. I mean, they're the third largest comic book publisher in the United States, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I mean, it's and yet they still kind of have this like very indie feel. They don't have that like corporate kind of mentality, so far as I can tell. You don't have to confirm or deny.
I can confirm that.
Okay,
that's true.
Yeah. Now we've talked about Spawn and Todd McFarlane at length,
and he's someone who, when you meet him, I think the legend is not. There's a lot of people who say like, oh, like this is what Todd McFarlane's like, and he's actually one of the kindest, genuinely just good-hearted people that I've met so far through Image. And I haven't dealt with him a lot, but I was very taken aback at just how personable he was, because I think it's really easy when you have that level of success to kind of lose perspective. And
sure, especially the rocket speed success that he had.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. There's no doubt about it. But I still have Jake's care package, which I've been meaning to send. I have a signed Todd McFarlane Spawn poster with all these different
Corey
Spawn looks over the years.
Corey spoils me so much. He gets me pizza from across the country.
I don't know if you guys know this. It's actually, some of my coworkers still believe this, but Jake is in fact my son.
Oh yeah. I see the resemblance in the eyes.
Do you want to tell that story? Because it's like the funniest story.
So I talk about Jake and Camille because they used to work at the shop I work at. Well, they still do. I don't anymore. But I talked about them so much and saying how much I missed them and how hard it was to be away from them, that one of my coworkers said, "Man, it must be hard for you to be away from your son, Jake." And I said, "What?" And they were like, "Well, with you being at work and thinking I'm a working mother, and my son is Jake Bozick, who is in fact older than me."
Yeah, 28-year-old man-child.
Yeah.
But I did correct him, although there was a moment when I was like, you know what, I'll just let it go.
Yeah, let's run with this.
Go.
I really
not like they'll ever know, right?
Yeah, just have like childhood pictures of Jake. Have current pictures of Jake. Keep them guessing.
Yeah. I'm listening to my son's podcast.
Yeah. I'm so proud.
Which I can't say there is a level of that. I do listen to you guys every week, and I am really proud of you. And it's so funny because I haven't seen you guys in forever, but I honestly feel like I see you guys all the time, especially listening to Jake do Nicolas Cage.
I was hoping that he would do one when Chris referenced
I haven't thought about Nicolas Cage in so long because it was such a long. It wasn't long. It was such an intense affair with Nicolas Cage, and then it just burned out.
I feel like it's like his second marriage.
Yeah. Did you know he was married to Patricia Arquette?
Yeah, Oscar-winning actress.
Yeah. Well, the last when she won for Boyhood, the last time she was at the Oscars was with Nicolas Cage when he won for Leaving Las Vegas, which was like 96 or something.
Yeah, it was mid-90s.
Yeah, which is crazy. I didn't know that.
Here's a question, because back when you were living here on the East Coast before you moved over to the Best Coast, we used to watch assloads of movies together.
We did.
I was wondering what you were thinking, because we had talked at length about the Oscars a couple of weeks ago. What did you think of, like, performance-wise and of the nominees and that sort of thing?
I didn't see too many of the movies that were nominated. But
you've been busy lately.
I have been.
There's the big Image Expo in January.
Yes, it's been a rough road these last couple months, but I'm here. So I did see Birdman, which probably the best movie I saw all year.
Oh, yeah.
I know I called Jake and I was like, you have to see Birdman.
Well, it's funny because I think you called me and then Ethan called me or texted me and was like, let me know when you see Birdman. It's astounding.
And for those of you who don't know, Ethan is, in fact, Jake's father.
That's right. That is true. He is really my father, though.
But it was one of those movies
also
where
in the eyes.
we left the theater, the two of us, and I can remember Ethan and I, we looked at each other, and it was like leaving real life and actually going into a movie. That was the feeling of leaving the theater. It was this surreal reintegrating into actual what was real, and it just felt so bizarre. I was so thoroughly invested in the world that I was watching that I felt like I was in this make-believe, fantasy land, and I actually walked out of the theater. It was really strange.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, we had all seen that, and we kind of had the same thing walking out of the theater.
I have to ask you, when he let out that Birdman screech, did you guys laugh?
We were kind of laughing throughout the movie because, like...
I mean, the screech in particular.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah, but it's funny. That...
Ethan and I were the only ones that laughed in the theater, and, like, people were genuinely upset at us. Like, I just was checking that wasn't...
It was always kind of empty. I saw it in theaters twice because I knew that after it was out of theaters, I would never... That's one of those films I feel like you kind of benefit seeing in that big screen theater format, and I knew that if I didn't see it again, I would maybe never get the chance again.
I also got to say, I'm very proud of my dad, not Ethan, my other dad, because he watched the movie with me. He didn't fall asleep, which is astounding. And he actually really liked the movie because he doesn't usually like the artsy kind of stuff. And the movie is a kind of, it's not what I think some people were expecting something totally different.
It's not
It's not anything. It's not a superhero movie.
Yeah.
For one.
Or a drama, really.
Yeah. Or really.
I mean, there's dramatic elements.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but the screeching, was funny. I mean, for me, the scene that always has me laughing, and I've seen it like 4 times now, since it's been released on Blu-ray, is the scene where it's right after when he squawks like a Birdman, is when he starts floating in the sky and he's like, "Look at you, motherfucker! Gravity doesn't apply to you." And he's just like, "Oh!" And then he gets to the top, and the woman's like, "Is this one of those? Are you guys filming is this real life? Are you guys filming? Shooting a film?" And he stops for like a beat or two, and then like the way he like kind of twists his face because he just looks so defeated, and he just goes, "A film," and like the way he says it is just like, I don't know. Every time I saw it, it's the funniest thing in the world.
I mean, yeah, in terms of other Oscar-nominated things, you watched Foxcatcher last week.
I watched Foxcatcher, and I remember
was it everything that Sam wanted it to be?
I actually kind of I inadvertently watched it with Sam's eyes because this has been like
I'm sorry.
This is like it's like Moby Dick for Sam. Like he's been hunting this thing, but he never actually wants to kill it or see it, And so it was available for rent because no disrespect, I was not going to buy the movie. I was like, I'll rent it
at least sight unseen.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably wouldn't buy it, but
And that's all you need to know.
I rented it, and I was actually very curious because before this kind of became a running joke here at Geek Out. I was curious because it's a very tragic and interesting and semi-inspiring story, like kind of in the beginning, about Mark Schultz, the wrestler, and his brother Dave Schultz, and then this guy John Dupont, who's played by Steve Carell. Look, I love Steve Carell. I would have, if there had to be an Oscar nomination for Best Actor given to someone in that movie, it would have been the Channing Tatum. And I mean that in all seriousness, because Channing Tatum absolutely stole the show 100%. And the movie is a movie where it's very quiet. There's a lot of, long takes of just sitting and doing nothing, and Steve Carell breathing heavily. And, the prosthetics are so unnecessary. It's absolutely. And I don't know if that was because they wanted to make you think you weren't seeing Steve Carell, but in turn, all I was thinking of that's Steve Carell and a fake nose. Like, I couldn't help thinking that. The score was fantastic, and the director, I can't remember, is it Bennett?
Yeah, Bennett Miller, the guy that directed Moneyball.
For me, his nom for best director, his nomination.
Such an insider.
Such a chode thing to say. His nomination was well deserved. Like, absolutely, it was a beautifully directed movie. It ends kind of weird. Again, it's very tragic. I thought that Mark Ruffalo was really good, and Steve Carell does his best, but he's a very good actor. It wasn't. I don't think it was right for him. It was really ballsy and brave for him to take the role, because it's a really weird role. But if you're going to see it, watch it for Channing Tatum's performance. I mean it. I mean, he totally goes and gives himself up to the movie 100%.
And watch it without my eyes.
Well, I couldn't help but think, man, Sam would be laughing his ass off during this scene and this scene and this scene.
Well, that's funny because that's kind of happened to Ethan and I with Smallville.
Oh, really?
We were watching things with your eyes, and I'll tell you. So we're in season 6, 7, somewhere.
Okay.
So,
Has he had Metropolis yet?
No.
Okay.
So Lana and Lex just got married. She just lost the baby.
Yeah.
Or the baby that never was, which I just found out. Oh my God. But I started off hating Chloe.
I know. And I remember I was like,
Chloe.
You gotta give her time.
And there was this
She's
moment.
like a fine wine.
She's gonna be at AwesomeCon.
There's this moment where she's, in the Daily Planet telling Clark, I'm here for you. I love you. And she's just, all of a sudden I turned to Ethan. I was like, fuck. I was like, he was right. And Ethan looks at me and goes, no lie. I was just thinking that.
Well, I remember because you guys sent me because you guys have been marathoning Smallville for a while now, and I mean,
it's champs.
I mean, it's 10 seasons. I mean, that's a haul.
And we didn't start that long ago.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
If you guys can survive the Vampire Sorority Girls episode, you can watch the entire.
As a hardcore episode. Buffy fan, that was I was totally okay with that.
I know you watched the Vampire Diaries and many CW shows and Supernatural, even after season 5.
I had to give up on that.
Whoa!
I know. So this is coming from someone I was one of those people who
Me too.
Dude,
Me too.
I don't know what the fuck happened. So season 5, clearly there's an ending. I mean, Eric Kripke, we all know, intended it to have a 5-season arc. That was it. It's it. Everything happens. You're actually wonderful storyline. And then they have Sam standing outside the fucking window at the end of the episode. And I was like, nope.
Yeah, no. You just turn the TV off before it pans all the way out. It's just like Back to the Future Part 3. You turn it off before the time traveling train shows up.
And then we get Soulless Sam, which God bless Jared Padalecki, but come on, that was the most wooden, and I guess that was the intent, but it was just rough. Yeah. I think I gave up when I heard, and I hadn't even seen the episode, and I heard that Dean gets turned into a dog. Or body swaps or something.
This is like Silver Age Superman.
I haven't watched
comics.
He so I know which episode you're talking about. He kind of melds with the dog.
Nope.
And he's still Dean, but he takes on dog traits.
Like Channing Tatum in Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah. It was pretty bad.
I just couldn't do it. I made it through 8 seasons, I think.
So you didn't see demon possessed Dean?
No, that's the last episode I saw.
Okay.
And I was like, and then that was the sad thing was there are these moments after season 5 where you'd get an episode and be like, this is my show, it's back, it's it. And then the next, it was like they found that kernel of what made the show special, and you'd be like, damn it, they're back. And then the next episode, it was everything you hated all over again.
Yeah. The whole Dean turning into a demon I thought was going to be what got me back into it. And then 2 episodes into the new season.
I feel better now.
Yeah, no. 2 episodes into the new season, he's already not possessed anymore.
Dude.
And I was like, really? You anyone that knows me knows that I love the fall from grace. You know,
the Emerald Twilight.
The Emerald Twilight. Yeah.
Well, when he became a vampire for like one episode, I was like, man, that'd be cool just to explore for 2 or 3 same episode.
I wanted, I wanted at least an entire season of Sam Verstein. That would have been great, but no.
That was kind of like the lore of season 4 when he's drinking demon blood, and we've got this like actual specific rift between them that he's ingesting pure evil basically. And I was like, okay, that's actually sad as fuck, but it was really good TV. Like it made for a great problem.
I don't think anybody wants to watch a show where there's no drama.
No.
I mean, I remember hearing early production notes from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Gene Roddenberry was adamant like there's no personal conflict in the crew. There's no they've evolved beyond personal conflict. 1, not realistic, at least not within like those time frames. 2, what the hell kind of show is that going to be?
Well, I mean, then there's also the inverse problem of that. There's you're insulting the character's intelligence by putting them in the same problem over and over. Like Sam and Dean not trusting each other and lying over and over and over again. At some point, you're like, it's the Batman Joker scenario. Where you're like, just fucking kill him. Like, so I mean, I want it's like got to be a healthy. There's a balance. There's a balance.
People do have to eventually evolve a little.
Yeah, I do like a good character arc. I think shows like Breaking Bad and kind of that sort of thing kind of established that to a better degree. But then you had story arcs like. What was the character's name? Was it was Hank's wife Marie?
Yeah.
Oh, the klepto stuff?
Yeah.
They're just
totally
never
unnecessary.
Not everybody has to have something.
Nope.
Yeah. Not everybody has to.
It just popped in, and then as surprisingly as it came in, it left.
But then it came back. Like it was there in the first season. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. So it was, I don't know, just stuff like that. I don't know. It just kind of bums me out watching that sort of thing.
Well, it's like they're the shows that I think Supernatural is one of those shows. It's like kind of a guilty pleasure. Like True Blood, I watched those shows until it got to a point where I was like, "What the fuck is happening in this show?"
It's over now. You can like watch the last.
I tried. I went back and I made it like 15 minutes. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I just can't do it.
Speaking of guilty pleasure TV shows, were
Gilmore Girls?
Gilmore Girls. That's not a guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty about that.
Whoa,
I'm all about some Gilmore Girls.
That's weird.
I gotta
proud about that one.
Wow. Throwing some shade.
Teen Wolf. Now, when they originally, I forgot who it was who said this, but remember there was that article going around that the lead on Teen Wolf was Spider-Man. Did you ever hear about that?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay. I mean,
Dylan O'Brien.
Yeah, it's not happening because he didn't even hear about it. Okay, well then that makes it doesn't matter now because I was wondering like if you read that like how you must have been like, oh fuck yeah.
Well, interestingly, there was another rumor that Tyler Hoechlin, he's one of the guys on Teen Wolf he was going to be the new Batman.
Oh yes.
But I was more excited about that because he's actually the little boy from Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, which
underrated film.
It is actually.
Amazing cinematography.
I went back and watched
Based on
that
a
movie,
comic.
and it was really good. And I was like, man, if he had those acting chops as like a 6-year-old or whatever he was, and then he's grown into quite the man. I can tell you.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like,
remember you sent me so many like headshots of him, and you were like, he would be perfect as Batman.
No, I was
Why
really
isn't he
excited,
Batman?
but obviously I'm pretty thrilled about Ben Affleck too. So
sure, totally, yeah.
I'm not a doubter. I believe.
Yeah, good. I believe in the Bat.
I want to believe.
Oh, I think we always make that X-Files reference.
Well, I think it's funny. Like
Batfleck.
I'm kind of against the whole teaser trailer thing. Like it just doesn't do shit for me.
Yeah.
But I have to say that teaser trailer where we're seeing kind of like Dark Knight
overtones or undertones.
Yeah, and he's in the suit, and then you've got just the lights coming on like from his eyes, and then Superman with his eyes. I was like,
that was so
shit.
Awesome. I remember I saw a crappy YouTube video of it where he turns on the bat signal and you don't really see Superman, and then the lightning strikes and you see Superman in it, and it zooms in on his eyes with the heat vision. The guy doing the camera, I think I told the story before, he was like, oh, and like he was like almost like an opera singer, and he was just shaking,
hitting that aria.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy was I was at San Diego when that got revealed, and like we didn't know what it was, but the entire like
Hall H
reverberated. Like you could feel. I was like, "What the hell did they just reveal?" And it was.
Was that the first San Diego Comic-Con? I mean, certainly the first one you worked, but was that the first San Diego Comic-Con you had ever been to?
It was.
Yeah.
But I really didn't leave the booth, so I can't tell you
anything.
Yeah.
I walked by and I saw, the cast of The Flash signing.
That's cool.
And I was kind of like, I just want to sleep. Like, I just gotta go lie down.
It's Grant Gustin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I remember our buddy Alex, who now works at the shop, saw you there, and he was just like, how you were just like, so, it was like just overrun central. Like, it was so intense and crazy. I mean, I can imagine, like, that must have been wild. Like, New York was enough for me. Like, I don't know.
Have you worked at any other cons, or has it just been the Image Expos in San Diego?
I was at New York, and I'll be in Emerald City in 2 weeks, and then WonderCon, and then there's another one, C2E2
in Chicago. Yeah.
So every month I'll be at a con for the next I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the shit right now. So it's
Are you going to Special Edition New York?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
But I mean, it's really exciting to kind of go to cons like now that I'm on the publishing side of it, because honestly I do miss the hand selling like aspect of being in the comic book shop. That was, I mean, and Jake, Chris can probably attest to this. The best part of working in a comic book store is sharing something you love and getting someone to bite. Because sometimes they're like, "Oh, I don't want to read that." I'm like, "You don't even fucking know yet."
Well, I remember,
like,
Corey always tells that story that she thought that I hated her because
I wouldn't buy a damn thing I suggested.
I had no job, so I couldn't buy anything, and I felt really bad.
I just thought he hated me because you guys don't know this, but he's a resting dread face.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, he's like a pug.
It's more of a resting Judge Dredd face.
Yeah.
And so I came in and she was just like, "You should read this and this and this and this," and I was like, I didn't want to blur it out. I have no money, like, you know. But I remember one of the books you recommended to me was Bedlam, and I remember I loved that. That kind of book fell by the wayside, but like it was great while it lasted, I guess. But I mean, there, you know, like we were saying, Essex County, and like, you know.
I really do have to credit Corey for getting me into more less of the big two books.
100%.
I had certainly read stuff like The Walking Dead, and I know this is technically like a DC title, but it has kind of the same sensibilities. Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and really Grant Morrison's work in the early '90s, like Doom Patrol and Animal Man. But it was really because after Jake managed to not destroy Corey's copy of Essex County, then she let me borrow it along with the first couple volumes of Sweet Tooth, because I'd been reading Jeff Lemire, but it was his work on Animal Man and Frankenstein Agents of Shade, which nobody read.
It's the best,
so good.
The best Lego character.
So good.
Yeah.
I'm like unabashedly in love with that. It was one of those, and I was like, every now and again this happens, and it's always like really fun. You'll read a comic, especially like a DC or Marvel book, where you're like, you don't really even know who the creative team is. You're like, oh, whatever, I'll read it. And I read that book. I was like, man, this is pretty good. And I flipped it over, and it was Jeff Lemire. And I was like, oh, you.
That's so like when I first heard Cold Gin by Kiss, and I was like, this is my favorite Kiss song. And I flipped it over, and it was Ace Frehley wrote it. And I was like, yeah, he's my favorite member.
Yeah, the Spaceman.
Which just made it so much cooler. I don't know. But no, I mean, you're all about Animal Man.
Yeah.
And Grant Morrison's Animal Man run has become pretty much my favorite run in comic book history.
It's so good, and it's one of those. It's a character that's so overlooked. I don't understand it.
I remember when I finally wrote to you, I was like, "This is the greatest run I've ever read," and you were just like, "No shit." Like, go read Swamp Thing now.
Were you bummed when because DC just ended Swamp Thing?
Yeah.
Because Charles Soule's done writing it, and that's so they just ended it. They didn't give it to a new writer.
Another guy who really just can't mess up.
He's good.
He's just
good.
Always good. And a lawyer full time.
Yeah, and he has a band that he plays in New York City with, and he writes like 9 books.
Yeah, that was one of those moments. It was at Baltimore Comic-Con, and I was still working for the shop, and our boss was like, "Hey, you got like 10 minutes, go walk around," and really just kind of like shell shocked, just trying to breathe for 10 minutes. And I walked up to him, and I was like, "Hey, I just love you, and I'm really sorry because I'm so tired, but keep doing what you're doing." And he was just like, "Oh, no problem." And I think that was after we'd seen Trad Moore.
Yeah,
who,
this
like,
table was right down the way.
Yeah, the coolest.
Jake and I have an ongoing line that we like to plug every now and again is Trad Moore for president.
Trad Moore for president.
And it really doesn't even have to be comic book related, but Trad Moore for president.
Trad Moore for president. That's it. That's
he offered
simple.
to buy me a drink in New York City after New York Comic Con.
Because there's just nobody who draws like him. There's just no one.
And he's such a nice guy.
Yeah,
so approachable. And he loves Marvel vs. Capcom, which is like, come on.
Well, I remember when I mean, yeah, Matt. Well, speaking of books that Corey got us turned on to, I think my favorite, one of my favorites is Luther Strode.
Back in April.
I know, I can't freaking wait. Like I remember everyone was like, he's leaving Ghost Rider, and I was like, it's fine because he's doing freaking Luther Strode, and like Ghost Rider can wait.
I mean, there are few creators who he got me to give a shit about Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Like, which isn't something that, I had no reason not to give a shit about him, but like I just felt completely indifferent.
Well, his Ghost Rider, like the way he draws just anything, but the way Ghost Rider was the perfect character for him to draw because the flames, like it just gives you this natural like dynamic of him moving the way that Ghost Rider moves. And because Ghost Rider is this otherworldly supernatural kind of thing, he can defy gravity, he can defy physics, and it just works so beautifully for him.
Although Jake, which I know all of you probably know by now, has a thing for helmets and masks.
Yes.
And I swear to God, that shit has rubbed off on me. And like when I saw that helmet, like I was like, oh man, that helmet.
Well, you were still working at the shop when the first issue came
Yeah.
out, and we lost our shit about that issue. Like we sold that like insane. Like it's still, I mean, the first trade is still one of my favorite Marvel, like all new Marvel Now trades. But going back to Luther Strode and the mask thing and Trad Moore, you were like, read this book. It's basically Casey Jones like on steroids, and so the front cover is him like holding his bloody mask. And I hadn't seen I think really any or much Trad Moore at that point. I was still like really getting back into like especially the whole indie comic thing. So I read it, and I remember that night I was like, I'll read one issue, and I read it cover to cover and freaked out about it. And then when I think it was one of the cons, I wasn't with you, so it might have been New York or maybe Baltimore. I don't know. Trad Moore's there, and Trad Moore's the kind of guy that he doesn't know who I am, but he always makes you feel like you're his best friend. He knows exactly who you are, which is really awesome.
Again, offers to buy you a drink.
Yeah, exactly. And I told him, I was like, Corey Murphy, like she turned me on to this book because she said it's basically Casey Jones mask. This guy, he was like, oh, wait, and he like flipping through his stuff, and he had a drawing that he did back to back, like minus Joe Pesci from Lethal Weapon 2, and it was Casey Jones and Luther Strode like kicking ass, and he's like, nobody ever makes that connection. And I was like,
did.
Corey Murphy.
But what's funny is like I don't know if you've gone to his DeviantArt page.
Oh yeah, we used to look at that all the time.
Yeah,
like I have an incredibly soft spot for Thundercats. Like I love Thundercats.
Who's your favorite?
I mean, really? Do we need to?
Chitara.
No.
Lion-O?
Yes.
I was gonna say you saw her giant. Did you ever see the giant figure she has? She has
I have
like some,
all of them.
Yeah, like
I have the
14-inch.
I haven't studied your collectibles.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
they're in my office at Image, which like there was a moment where one of my coworkers walked in. They were like, "So you're bringing all the non." our publisher toys in. I was like, don't look at Godzilla, don't look at Thundercats, and stay away from my Star Trek. And everyone was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Was Spock your favorite member of the Star Trek crew?
I mean, he's everyone's favorite. He was.
But was he yours?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, he was. But there was, in the Trad Moore DeviantArt, he had a Lion-O. And I was like, fuck, I want that so bad.
Was he selling it on like Cadence Comic Art?
No. But he also had... I think it was an Optimus Prime. It was like a sad Optimus Prime. Oh, so funny. That
was
guy
he just like crying.
Well, he did
crying oil.
Tapping into the childhood thing. He drew this thing of Ultraman in front of a Japanese flag, and that was something I hadn't thought about Ultraman since I was like 7, and I saw like a dubbed version on TV as a kid. And I was looking through it, and it's this bright red and white, and it's just him doing like the like little like.
What was he doing?
You can't see what I'm doing, but he crosses his hands and shoots a laser and defeats whatever wolf monster thing he's fighting. Yeah, I don't think he actually does. I think that was just me, but whatever. And I saw that, and it immediately tapped into this thing. I was like, Ultraman. I haven't watched Ultraman. And it was on Hulu, and I remember I sent him a message. I was like, you inspired me to watch Ultraman again. He was like, yeah, Ultraman rules.
Did you guys see the not fan made, but the short of Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Oh,
the fan film.
The guy who was
Katie
the
Sackhoff.
producer on Dread.
Amazing.
And
James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, as soon as you said Katie Sackhoff, I was like, oh, and James
Dawson.
Vanderbeek was in it, but I completely forgot his name.
If you said Dawson, I would have tracked. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was okay.
I liked it.
I don't know. My favorite thing about the Power Rangers is how cheesy and goofy it is. So like seeing it be like real dark and gritty, I was just like, nope,
Yeah.
this is not my
I don't know.
Power
For
Rangers.
me, it was like Dread meets Tron, and like I was like, I'm
Ooh,
okay with
I want
that.
to. Oh, I
I'm
want
okay
to.
with that.
Oof, man.
And Katie Sackhoff. I mean, like Dread meets Tron featuring Katie Sackhoff. I mean, I think we're
had
all
a lot
there.
of great elements. They could have taken the Power Rangers name off of it, and I would have liked it. I'm
I
sure.
mean, that's actually pretty fair. Like, I would have been equally interested in that movie had it not been Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. Yeah. Now, you mentioned Godzilla earlier. By the way, I still have that giant Jason Aaron like bearded Hulk figure you gave me.
Oh yeah.
I always think about putting that on my desk, but nobody talks about the stuff I have on my desk as it is.
Jason Aaron's Hulk, one of my favorite.
One of the most underrated. It was only for like 12, 13 issues. But the what's your favorite Godzilla film, and who's your favorite kaiju?
Oh, why are you doing this to me?
He does this all the time.
You know what? I'm abstaining.
Okay, all right. I'm not going
like,
to twist your arm.
No.
I'm just going to say Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and King Caesar, of course. Or either that or Jet Jaguar. Anyway.
It's one of those ones that, like, I don't know if I can separate, like, how I feel about Godzilla, like, from the movies themselves. I'm just like, oh, it's a Godzilla movie. Like, I'm happy to be there. So there's some of them that it's no matter how
bad.
Yeah.
Like the one with Minya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mechagodzilla obviously is my favorite.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
But
wow.
in terms of picking like
But which Mechagodzilla? Isn't there the Mechagodzilla like 2000 or whatever?
Okay, so there's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 in the 90s. Yeah.
And you know, one of the best I don't know if I think I tried to make Jake read this. I don't know if Sam ever.
Oh, is it the Eternal War or
no,
Century War?
Century War.
Yeah,
Godzilla
that was
Century
good.
War.
Yeah.
Man.
I had it forever.
That was a
but I read
5-issue
you
IDW.
did have it forever. I was like, you read that yet? And
Yeah,
you're
you
like,
still have my
"Oh."
sensational Spider-Man annual.
I know,
which
but
is
we
my
live in the
Damn
same
it,
house, so
Jake.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Collecting dust.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I need to let you borrow my Flash.
Yeah, it's it's super cool. I mean, like that, you know, my weird brain when I saw the Godzilla movie, and this is something that is impossible. Like it would have never happened in a million years. But I was praying for a post-credit scene where Ultraman shows up, and the
Jet Jaguar is pretty close.
Ultraman shows up and he like uppercuts Godzilla into space, and then Ultraman like does the jaw, like he actually makes that noise. He's like jaw, and he flies towards the camera, and it cuts to black, and it's like Ultraman coming in 2015, and we get the Ultraman reboot because they did this really cool manga that they did in Japanese. They did like a rebooted kind of, it was almost like a Mobile Suit Gundam like Ultraman thing where it was like kind of Iron Man-esque armor. It wasn't like, you know, obviously the plastic suit is very like practical looking, as practical as a giant Ultraman can be. But it's only in Japanese. Like they never did it in English, and I was super bummed.
Was it like Voltron or Big O?
It was kind of like that. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was, you know, a guy wearing the suit. It wasn't like he has a stick and he just like, you know, says the thing, and then he like and like grows, and then he's just in like the rubber suit, which is like holes in the armpits, and just like grabbing the wolf thing and throwing it through like styrofoam. You know, like there's something. I mean, that, you know, being Godzilla fans, I mean, that's something that, like, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's like you turn into a little kid like cheering again for like Ultraman.
I will always love seeing a man in a rubber suit destroying a cardboard city.
Yeah,
That will never not be wonderful to
little
me.
toy tanks rolling up, and with the little like
with little firecrackers going off to symbolize it shooting.
yeah. With the flying Godzilla like flying kick,
Just rocking back and forth
on his tail. Oh man, now I'm gonna watch some kaiju movies.
Yeah, I have them all saved on my computer.
I need
just
to
watch
bring my
them.
external hard drive, and get all those. Or I should support the official release and watch them on Netflix, because we should all do that.
Yes, or you should go to Hulu and watch the original Ultraman series because it's fantastic.
Yes, indeed. So, Corey, what are you currently geeking out over?
I don't know. It's probably not so much. So there's a couple shows that I've been playing catch up on that
American Horror Story.
No,
Did you let that fall by the wayside?
So second season totally just was like
with the aliens. Yeah.
No, not the aliens. It was just
Nazi doctors.
Like so. I'm
They're all
Marine
there.
5.
I'm by no means
making up
opposed
stuff.
to
Blibbity
violence.
blops.
Like Jake and I both are like huge gore fans. Like any kind of cheap horror, like I'm there.
Oh, I mean, we've talked about horror, cheap horror on this all the time.
And it just seemed like gratuitous shock value that had no change on how I felt about the plot. And I just was like, what the hell is going on? Like,
and the editing looked like it was like high on crack.
For
for
Asylum.
Yeah, I couldn't get past like 5 episodes because I was just like, I'm not epileptic, but I feel like I might be having a seizure from all these like jumping around.
You know, after the first season, which I felt like was so well executed,
it's the only one I've seen. Yeah,
I just felt kind of like they had this one season that they'd really planned out, and then it went really well, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta throw something together. Well, asylums and aliens, and here we go, Nazis. I was just like,
Apparently, Coven is really good.
Coven?
Coven, but because of American movie, I'd say Coven.
Yeah, that's how you grew up.
Yeah,
pronouncing it like that. Or have you heard anything about Freak Show?
I've heard very mixed reviews about Freak Show. That there are a couple people that I know that are like, oh my god, it's so good, it's the best one,
since Murder House.
Yeah, and then there are other people that are like, it's the worst one since Asylum.
Yeah. So wait, what have you been catching up then, if not American Horror Story?
I mean, I've been doing. Honestly, I'm taking some sign language classes. So I took a lot in college, and I did a lot of like early intervention work with the foster care system in Chicago for deaf children, and they had like hearing parents, and I'd go like work, helping them kind of assimilate and learn the language and everything. And recently, I just kind of really missed feeling like. Not to say that comics isn't changing lives, but, feeling like I was doing something or being able to help. So
something worthwhile.
Yeah. So I started taking classes again, which not the brightest idea given that my commute is an hour and a half. So I'd go to
time to listen to one of our episodes,
which is what I do every week.
How is the just the traffic in general in the Bay Area?
So, I mean, I'm on BART all the time. So I'm really not,
driving,
in the car. So I drive half an hour to BART, and that's like pretty residential, like a lot of stop go traffic lights, but nothing that's like heavy traffic. But the first day I went to work, I took the 101 and I never did it again. So I mean, it's not but I mean, honestly, like the commute itself, I don't mind like the amount of time. It's just when that means I'm getting home is what I hate.
Is Image based out of San Francisco or San Jose?
In Berkeley.
Berkeley.
So,
by the college.
Yes. It's so. I mean, I get home pretty late, and then I decided like, I'm gonna take these classes, so I get home even later. And then I mean, it's really fun. Like I definitely.
Honestly, I've been thinking about doing the same thing because I work for a university. I get 6 free credit hours. I'm thinking about doing Russian.
Yeah, and it's something that's kind of nice when you're using your brain outside of what you work in, and it's something that's kind of like exercise, and it's something that I've always been really passionate about. But other than that, I've probably been geeking out the most on it was this book called Couch by Benjamin Parzabak. I want to say his last name is. I can't pronounce it correctly. I'm sorry, Benjamin. Yeah. But really quirky, like fun book, and I've just been really just kind of revisiting it in my brain every couple of days. So
sure. Doing any
actually, you three might really enjoy it. I had like each one of you as a character in my brain when I read that. There's 3 guys who are carrying a couch that has like mystical powers, kind of like John dies at the end, except for if it was a good book. So
shots fired.
I read that book and really liked it, and it wasn't until I thought about it I was like, you know what, this was not very good.
You know what, I have that same effect or that same feeling when I watch House of Cards. I love the performances. I think it's well made, well shot. But if you actually sit and think about the story, you're like, this is really fucking dumb. Like if the people that Frank Underwood would just stop and compare notes, they'd be like, oh, it's totally this asshole right here. Like, why are we letting him like?
Now, you guys have me feeling bad for John dies at the end now. That like unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, Maybe I haven't gone back and thought about it, but I did read it, and I saw the movie,
Oh man, that movie is.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Mostly because
available
like
on Netflix.
Yeah. No, I mean it's watchable. It's watchable. Very well
Thank you,
made,
Sam.
but like it's so. It does such a hatchet job to the
Yeah.
story, like because there's enough story in that book that you could probably do like a 10-part miniseries or something like that. But they chopped it down to an hour and a half, and there's just so much missing out of it.
I believe it's written by the guy that runs Cracked.com.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, the
God.
book is. I don't know if he did the screenplay as well.
Probably not the
yeah.
screenplay,
But yeah.
There was, I mean, there were moments that were really fun,
Mhm.
but like the more I thought about it, I was like, no.
Have you tried reading the sequel?
I didn't.
There's spiders in this
Nope.
book or something like that.
Yeah.
My sister got it for me for Christmas, and I started reading it, and I was like, okay, it's got kind of the same feel to it, but
Yeah, I mean, I read Couch recently, and then reading Ready Player One again. And it was one of those things like I had been talking about it to a coworker, and I was like, I gotta read that again. I really liked that.
Speaking of players and numbers, I recently played.
And letters and books and paper.
I finally got a chance to play Five Nights at Freddy's 3. That game finally came out. I only did the first night because I'm a gigantic wuss, but it's not as good as the first two. But it's I mean, it's not bad. It's bigger and it's not as scary, but it's like it's more complex. Another indie game that I've been playing has been and we'll hopefully stream, I still haven't played 2. I just kind of skipped over that one. We'll hopefully.
So how do you even know if 3 is not as good as 1 and 2?
I've seen enough of 2. Yeah, 2's been out since like November, but the I've also been playing Papers, Please, which is basically TSA, the game. You're a border patrol agent in an Eastern European country at the height of the Cold War, and you decide who gets visas. And they'll
Sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's like awesome because they'll come in with like forged documents and you check them and you're like, this is totally a forged
I feel
document.
like this is really telling about you, Sam, that you have some like power problems you need to work out.
This is like when you play Halo and you go, "Hello, boys." I can just see you playing this and going, "Papers, please," and then saying in different languages, like whatever different language is.
Palo, por favor.
Yeah, Fahrscheine bitte, no ticket.
They're just walking around like one of the Nazis in Wolfenstein. Papers.
The
It
guys.
just got dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Whenever you throw Nazis into it, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oofwaffe. That's what they say. Like one with a submachine gun.
They just recorded random German sayings.
Yeah, it's not all guard dogs and Frankenstein monsters with guns in their chests. There's actual like Nazi soldiers.
There's real men in that game too.
Yeah. There's more than just Hitler in a mech suit.
But I mean, other than those, I mean, Smallville is probably the most like. I mean, if we're talking like Geek Out, that's the one I've been like losing my shit over. There are some moments that are, I mean, they're real. Like you're just watching Superman happen like in front of your eyes, and it's just like Jake.
I'm so proud of my mother watching this show.
Both your parents.
Jake's shit-eating grin right now.
There's a lot. There's a lot of superhero TV that I want to like Flash. I just fucking don't like it, and it's just crazy because like Flash is one of my favorite characters in the DC universe, and like of the New 52, one of the best titles for sure.
At least at launch with the original.
Yeah, I mean, not so much now, but like when it started, it was really strong.
You also got me an Aquaman, by the way. Thank you for New 52, which is fantastical.
But Flash, I just can't.
You gotta go back and read the
get
Peter
in.
David stuff.
Can't get into it.
Yeah, I haven't actually, watched Flash yet. I know you two guys love it.
Yeah. Well, definitely like it more than Arrow. What's your stance on Arrow?
I like Arrow.
Yeah.
Arrow.
But I mean, then again, like,
Arrow.
it took a while till I was sold. Like, it took me till, like, I'd say, like, 2/3 of the way through season 1, where I was like, okay.
That's fair. I mean, with Flash, for me, it was instantaneous, and it hasn't let up. Like, I just look forward and love Flash so much. Gotham is so stupid, it's fun.
So that's Ethan and I watched that as like that's a
it's just it's totally insane, but I just, you know what, I love it now. I love that Gordon's becoming the sheriff in the town and kind of just like, fine, I'll fucking do it. I'll take a shotgun and go arrest the mayor because he's being a doucher.
Timothy Oliphant in Deadwood.
And then a Deadwood, I'll be the sheriff.
That's like that comparison. I mean, some of the best television out there that ever existed, and then
compared
Gotham.
to Gotham.
My big thing about Gotham is that I feel like they understood that they're like in a separate universe from the comics, and they like I get a sense like they like respect like the source material, but they were like, but we got this. We're gonna go our own way, and also, I mean, it's not just here's how Bruce Wayne became Batman. It wasn't just another origin story. It's focusing on peripheral characters, and I like that.
Yeah, kind of. What I didn't like is that we had to see young versions of everybody so quickly. It's
this guy, he tells a lot of riddles.
Yeah, I wonder what that means. Yeah, God, geez, just the pandering. Have you watched any Constantine?
I made it like 4 episodes in, and
because I know Constantine's like your boy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
and
right up there with Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing is like untouchable, but I mean, he's pretty fucking close. That's for sure. I mean, it's Animal Man, Swamp Thing, and then Constantine. They're like my favorite
over Morpheus. Just had to put that in the Vertigo column.
You guys couldn't see the face I was making, but let's just say there were daggers.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, Constantine should be a great episodic show. I mean, that's like it. That should work. But I mean, really, I don't think it can work unless it's on like HBO or if it's.
They're talking about putting it on Sci-Fi.
Not HBO though.
Yeah, yes.
So,
I don't know if you know this, but Sci-Fi's not a premium channel.
Still not HBO.
But I mean, it's just like the things that make him great. They just seem to not like fundamentally understand. They're like, he's English and he's got spunk, and we're gonna make him snarky.
Do you like Matt Ryan as?
I don't really think he's right.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
And I don't know how much of this is just.
Would you have preferred like what's his name, Marsters, Spike?
Oh, I mean, he's pretty much Constantine, kind of. But like
vampiric Constantine.
Yeah, I think you needed, and I think a lot of this is like the same problem that Gotham suffers from. Is like I think a lot of it has just got to be bad directing, and that they are getting advice that they really shouldn't be getting. Like it's just they're going too much too fast. Like they're trying really hard to beat the audience over the head with like, he doesn't give a shit and he's like, a rough and ready kind of guy, but it's like,
look guys, we know the source material.
Yeah, but
he's smoking, isn't that good enough?
Right. It's just like, give it a chance for the audience to kind of come to these conclusions on their own and have some respect for their intelligence and allow them to develop a story within their own mind. Like, we don't need you to hammer us over the head with all of the obvious facts that we could have already gathered our own. It's just not so great.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Zed too. I mean, like, just.
I thought that honestly. I like Matt Ryan in so much as I think he kind of fits with what he's given.
Mm-hmm.
Zed's kind of the for me kind of like the thing where it kind of breaks.
Do you what's his name? Chaz? Chad?
Chaz?
Yeah. Do you like him better than Shia LaBeouf?
I mean, that's again
bar.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's,
my name's Chaz, whatever, asshole. Boom, you're dead. Nobody cares about you anymore in this movie.
And then he becomes an angel.
Worst post-credit scene ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cheesy television that works because it's not trying to be anything other than it is. But I think both of those shows are cheesy because they're trying to be something they're not, and it's just like, let it go, let it be what it is.
Yeah. Just like the Beatles, they should let it be.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of I know
just like Frozen, they should let it go.
Yeah, if you want to go with a more popular choice, fine. But
did you just say that Frozen's more popular than the Beatles
these days?
More topical, anyway.
Yeah, in our current zeitgeist.
I don't know what you're talking about. Paul McCartney is ripping up the charts.
I know. I'm going to see him in 3 months. I'm stoked. I got tickets to Firefly. Because I remember last week I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get tickets to Firefly. And then it's like, we're not selling out. There's like hundreds of thousands of tickets. And I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to get mine anyway. So that totally happened. And speaking of music, what have you been listening to?
this is gonna sound. I don't really listen to music.
Is
like
it just us? Because God, I'm
I mean,
sorry.
I don't, so
Mom, you're embarrassing.
it's kind of like one of these weird situations.
I love my boys so much.
I
just
do.
keep
I
listening
really
to them
do.
all the
No
time.
EDM, no electronic.
So this is what happened. I have a laptop that I got while I was in school that has all of this like school programming on it that you can't access a lot of the updates without being a current student. And I'm lazy and I haven't taken it in and gotten it wiped and taken off my files and saved them. So I've just basically, I can't update my iTunes, which means I can't do anything on it. Because it's, you know, it has like a key access server that you can't get into if you're not a student anymore to update your actual computer, which is ridiculous. But
yeah, it's almost like spyware.
yeah, so I'm pretty much just not listening to music right now.
Not even like mobile Spotify.
Well, so
Walk the Moon.
at work, I sometimes listen to the Budos Band, which is kind of like jazz, jam band sort of. I don't really know any other bands I can compare it to. But they're great, and you should listen to them. They're kind of reggae jazz, like this type of stuff. So, which Jake knows. He fucking hated it, and I played reggae all the time at work because it's like the same song over and over again. I was like, "You get out of here, you leave."
It's the same chord.
It's not.
And going and like the same like up the same beat and just that's
Get
fine.
up, stand up.
That's so fine and so perfect for 1 2-minute song.
I think
Not every album ever made that's ever been existed is reggae.
that's true, but a lot of great albums that have ever made have been reggae.
Ooh. Speaking of music and going back to Jake infesting us with the love of masked heroes, I've been listening to the Bloody Beetroots a lot recently.
Oh shit! Yeah,
and also I think I might be turning into a fan of the masked performance, mostly because of you, Jake. Yeah, but we have
Venom mask.
Yeah, we have that new EDM night at my bar. And like everywhere,
It's
like
actually popular from what I understand.
No, it's great. Well, one of the big things that got it to be popular is that it's actually like been like a long-standing show, and they just happened to change venues to us recently, so they already had quite the following.
Right.
But it's the middle of the week, and we get some of our best numbers for people coming in and buying drinks and stuff like that. And they're all like respectable, like quote unquote older people, because like most of the rest of the night we're just pandering to college kids, and these people range from like 21, because that's the youngest you can be, 21 to like 40, and it's great to see people coming out in those numbers. But like I like EDM, but I was texting Jake this week, and I was like, man, every week after this EDM night, all I want to do is just go home and listen to Daft Punk. And then like while like kind of texting him back and forth, I was like, wait a second, what was that guy who wears the Venom mask? And we started talking about the Bloody Beetroots, and like I popped on to like YouTube and just found like a playlist of his album Hide, and like was listening to that on the way home. And like I've been listening to like just mixes of his like constantly for the past week. He's so good.
Well, I remember Daft Punk had kind of inadvertently said, like, I think they were really misinterpreted when they had said this thing about when they did Random Access Memories about kind of not doing electronic, and they've kind of done that, and they wanted to try something else, and almost like the Throne, they didn't say that, but like someone else can step up and do it. And for me, Bloody Beetroots, which is basically just Sir Bob Cornelius Rifu, is this this mask, wears a Venom mask, and it becomes this kind of this personality, kind of like Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, becomes the Bloody Beetroots. And in my opinion, he really stepped up, and he became like the heir to the throne for EDM. And I think Hide is an album that I know Corey and I used to listen to that song when we were driving to the that one club in DC to go see.
Oh my god,
that was the worst show ever.
That was. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. Like the worst.
That was terrible. But I remember listening to the song "Spank" by the Bloody Beetroots, which is like such a great album opener. That's the album opener
got my attention
on Hide. And so he is, and it's funny because there's kind of this running thing where like there's so many great electronic artists, and they're like mostly either French. He's Italian. They're like either French, or they have some kind of like they wear a mask. Like DJ Danger is fantastic as well. And another guy to check out. And yeah, the Bloody Roots, like Hyde is where it's at. I know Sir Bob is like doing kind of another solo project where he's just Sir Bob now and released a new track. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's like, as Tom on Parks and Rec would say, it's a banger. But the Bloody Roots are fantastic. Like they're just, in terms of like electronic bands and filling the void of, if there is a void to be filled right now from Daft Punk, whatever, the Bloody Beetroots are it for me.
I mean, I've been listening to like stuff like Walk the Moon, who I'll also be seeing in 3 months, and Saint Motel, just because they've got that song My Type by Saint Motel. If you want to just like sit in your car and dance like a crazy person, or if you're just looking for a just I can't. There's only so many.
That you're gonna explode. You're like,
it's just I want to. Started bubbling up like thunder from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, just explode. And that's what that song will do. If you want to explode, oof,
fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I know a band I've been listening to a lot is Chroma Key, which is the original keyboardist for Dream Theater. Kevin Moore, who's my favorite member of Dream Theater, did the solo project where he basically plays everything.
I thought you were a Mike Portnoy guy.
Well, no, my favorite keyboardist. I'm sorry, my favorite keyboardist of Dream Theater is Kevin Moore. Yeah, Portnoy probably all the way. But there's this track on the last track on the first album where it's kind of ambient music at times, electronic, metal things, whatever. And there's just destruction going on, and it's just a robot voice talking. And he's describing to the listener the end of the world, because he's the last thing on Earth as it's collapsing in on itself. And he's describing to you what's happening while like this like beautiful music is playing and like rising and swelling, and there's explosions. It's really creepy, but it's really cool. So Chroma Key.
And there you have it. Well, I think to carry us out, let's since we got Corey here, let's talk about some of our favorite Image books currently, like on the stands. Certainly, this past week's Descender #1, phenomenal. If you're looking for like, I mean, it's this big sci-fi epic with kind of shades of artificial intelligence by Steven Spielberg, except it's actually good. So I definitely recommend that. Of course, I've always been jumping up and down over Sex Criminals and anything that Brubaker writes. So the Fade Out has been and Velvet have both been phenomenal books, and of course Greg Rucka's Lazarus is just an ass kicker of a book. Do you guys have any like Image books? I know, Corey, for you it must be like having to choose children, but like there's like the work aspect of it too.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because there's all these books, and it's something that's a good problem to have, but we have so many good books coming out that it can be difficult to kind of keep up. And then you start having to kind of be like, well, I got 10 minutes, which am I going to read? And it's tough to pick. But I mean, Lazarus, Velvet, Fade Out. Really big fan of Nailbiter. It's been a lot of fun.
That was Williamson, right?
Yeah, Joshua Williamson. Yeah. Also doing Birthright. Those have been a lot of fun. But I think, obviously one of the first ones that's on my stack whenever it comes out is Saga, but it's like you always know it's going to be good, so it's easy. It's funny.
I've never read a bad Brian K. Vaughan book.
Yeah, that's he's lucky that way.
It's Paul for the coals.
Yeah, it's like Charles Soule.
Yeah, no, there's some people that I think they just really understand not only what is a good story, but good storytelling, and there's a big difference between the two. And the more and more you read really good content, you become, I think, a little bit more attuned to the actual storytelling part of telling good content. So I really like Velvet and Lazarus for that slow build. I'm a big fan of the slow burn and the
payoff of the long game.
Yeah, I like books where they value the reader's intelligence. And I know I've said that already once tonight, but that's something that like it really does. I don't like feeling an author's presence over my shoulder. I don't want them saying like, hey, do you see what I did there? I'm so clever. Like, I don't like that feeling. I'd rather them not be present.
Like Gotham.
Yeah, there's, and there are books that sometimes I think they can pull it off. They can do both. But I don't like feeling the author's presence.
Sure. Now, I know both of these are neither of them are Image books, but were you happy that Animal Man and Swamp Thing, which I know you're a big fan of both, got a definitive end, or would you have liked to have seen them going with a different writer?
So, I mean, okay, so those books, that's a hard question for me, because honestly, when Rot World happened, I kind of was like, fuck you guys. I hate you so much.
Don't hold back.
No, I was mad because they're my favorite. They're some of my favorite characters.
Sure,
and like bringing them over to DC and taking them out of Vertigo, mistake. Number one. Secondly, you've got two of your best writers. Like, I mean, Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire starting those runs. I mean, Jeff Lemire carried it through with Animal Man, but then Rot World happens, and it was just like, you could just so feel that they had not. I mean, I really can't speak. I don't know if what they did or didn't let them do, but it just felt so forced. It came out of nowhere. This huge clusterfuck of a crossover that just didn't fit.
I always argued that it went too long.
It was way too long. But then, you know, Charles Soule comes in and like saves the day on Swamp Thing. I was like, oh, thank God. And it was really, I don't know if you, Jake, I think I was telling you about this moment when he's in that kind of it was like I want to say like a greenhouse or some kind of
Are we talking about the Superman conversation?
No, yeah, when he's talking to Superman and he's like, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is really what you want. These kind of moments.
This is why they should be in the DCU.
Yeah, and I was like, that's what you can bring to the table, is having those kind of conversations that generally don't happen unless they're in another Charles Soule book called Superman and Wonder Woman, and you have that moment between Batman and Clark, and that was just like, that was incredible.
Oh yeah.
That book was so good, and then
he went Marvel exclusive. Yeah.
But
he still got Letter 44.
I don't know. So it was kind of a mess, those two books. Even when Animal Man wrapped up, it had been such a all over the place storyline that it didn't feel. I mean, those two books I was expecting to be like.
But would you have liked to see them going with different writers, or do you think it was good where they just kind of like, as soon as Charles Soule and Jeff Lemire were done with both, they were just good, just kind of ending both?
Well, I mean, I think that'd have been tough unless I think the only way to save it is they should have given him back to Vertigo. Be like, this didn't work.
Well, I feel like because the DC's got Dark Universe coming.
Yeah, and even they tried it the whole, with Constantine and Jeff Lemire on that too to start. I was like, and then Ray Fox took over, and it was just
there's something was not there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
now, do you guys have a current favorite or favorites, preferably Image books on the stands?
A lot of the Image that I've been reading has been like catching up or starting. Like, I'm slowly making my way through it, like Invincible, the other Kirkman, one of the other Kirkman books. I do like Outcast. Everyone knows, anyone who's listened to any of these, like, I've become like a born again Spawn fan, and I'm really psyched to see like Spawn Resurrection and then start it up again, because like I'm still like shocked at like how much I love Spawn 250. Like it's kind of blew my mind.
What's exactly the deal with Spawn Resurrection? Is that a miniseries? Because I know they've got 251 coming as well, and Resurrection.
Yeah, the way I heard it described was which is like that it's 250, Spawn Resurrection number 1, and then they're going back to 251. Like, that's the way I heard it. And that's the way it looks like it's going, I guess. I don't know. That's the most professional answer I can give you. But I'm looking forward to it. It's coming out this, on Wednesday, and
yeah, I think that's been one of my favorite parts about working in Image. There's a lot of books that I just didn't get around to. That I've been kind of, when we're at shows and we order a bunch of books to sell, I'll be like, oh, I'll take you and you, because just take them home and read them. And but I got really into Brandon Graham and Multiple Warheads and King City, and I just really. I think my tastes are shifting. Like, it's just what I like is way different than what I ever would have liked 2 years ago or even last year. So I mean, the more like Zero, Alesh Kott, like I gotta say, really big fan of his. I really enjoy the ones where you have to figure out what's going on and it's not just completely obvious. But
again, the ones that give the reader some credit.
Yeah, and also it's not overworked. There's very little there, but what is there is really satisfying, and it's one of the quickest reads. Like Five Ghosts. I don't know if you haven't read that book, but it's like it's like the pulpiest
I remember, yeah, you were all about.
thing. It's the pulpiest thing I've ever read. Like
pulpier than orange juice.
Yeah. And every time that Ethan is like, Jake isn't reading this, he like wants to reach across the country. And
I sent him a
slap you.
text today, and I was like, "It's official." Like, I mean, it wasn't official, but now it's official that like I'm getting Xbox One like as soon as possible because of course Arkham.
All for Batman.
Well, not all four
For
because
Ethan, right?
Well, actually, there's three things for Dad, Ethan. This is confusing because
so
my actual dad listens to this too. He's like, "What the fuck is happening? What's going on?
Why are they not talking about Cross of Iron anymore?
Yeah, Cross of Iron is the greatest movie of all time. It's really good. Yeah, but yes, for Ethan, for Arkham Knight Arkham Knight, yes. But the big one that I found out that was released in the news is the Mad Max game is only going to be next gen. How dare you do that to me and make me wait and then make it next gen?
Thank you for doing that to him because he never would have fucking bought it otherwise.
I would have got it eventually.
No,
but
you
now,
wouldn't
now,
have.
well, eventually, but now it's happening for real.
Chris, got any Image books?
Unfortunately, like I said earlier, funds aren't so great, and I would rather not pilfer comic books.
Of course.
Especially from such a reputable publisher like
There
Image.
you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Chris.
DC and Marvel, whatever. I'll just.
Yeah. But as soon as you saw that Sex Criminals #1 fourth printing,
Yeah, no, I really do want to check out Sex Criminals, especially after you won't shut up about it.
Oh God, yeah.
But in such a good way.
And it's like I was saying, it's getting its own TV series now. That's a book.
Hopefully, that's on HBO.
Yeah. Well, they did announce, I think, what network they were developing it for, but since I don't do my homework, I don't know. But I know that the Matt Fraction and his wife Kelly Sue DeConnick, both very prolific writers at Image Comics, have formed their own kind of production company where they can farm adaptations of their Milk-fed, yeah. Their stuff like Kelly Sue's got Pretty Deadly and Bitch Planet, and Matt Fraction's got 3 different Image titles right now that are currently in, 4. He's got Casanova, the latest volume of Casanova, which he's co-writing with Michael Chabon, Sex Criminals, Satellite Sam, and Odyssey. And then he's also got older work with that publisher as well. So they've got a lot of good stuff. Maybe I'll just let you borrow 6.
Southern Bastards.
Southern Bastards.
That's gotta be one of my favorites too.
Jason Aaron, yeah, it's a good one.
It's really good.
I remember I ran into him last year at Emerald City Comic Con, which you're going to in a couple weeks, and it's over in Seattle. It's one of the last honest to God comic book conventions, whereas San Diego's more entertainment based now. And I feel like New York's kind of heading that way too.
DC and Marvel weren't even, or DC wasn't at the last New York Comic Con at all, and Marvel barely had a presence there.
Yeah, it's just, even though Marvel's just right down the street.
Right.
And I guess at the time so was DC. I remember talking to him, just complimenting him, just being like, your work, especially Scalped, really reminds me of Elmore Leonard. It kind of has that same kind of like justified quality to it.
So Southern Bastards, and I don't really I can't really pinpoint like where the fuck I got this into my brain, but somehow I was told, or maybe I wasn't, and maybe it just completely fabricated the story in my own mind, that it was a Southern mafia story about vampires. And I'm not even joking. I pitched that book to so many subscribers. I was like, yeah, man, it's like Animal.
Based on that assumption?
Yes. And they all come back. First is you're like, where the fuck are the vampires? And I was like, they're coming. They're just hang in there. And I genuinely was wrong. There are no vampires.
Yeah, man. I'm still...
Yeah.
Damn,
I was
I'll
like,
keep
it's
an eye
Scalped meets American Vampire. And they were like, oh, that sounds cool. But I'm so glad it wasn't that, because this is way better.
It's great, yeah.
Well, now you'll just have to pitch that story to some of your writers over at Image.
Yeah.
And they can make it.
Jason Aaron, Jason Latour on the spin-off series.
Yeah, I think I'm really I really am drawn to that kind of rough art style. That's definitely something that's, I think, way more interesting now to me than sleek lines, unless it's Treadmore.
Yeah. Well, and Treadmore doesn't strive for realism either.
No, I mean that's the beauty of everything he does, I think.
Yeah, of course, talking rough art like Nailbiter, like you were saying earlier, definitely. Yeah, those have been good.
Jason Aaron's also a guy that could make you give a crap about Ghost Rider. His run is the best. I think we've mentioned it so many times, but it's because it's worth it. It's Daniel Way's run. It kind of started, like I said, Garth Ennis, Daniel Way, and then Jason Aaron, and give them a read too, because Daniel Way surprised me. Like I like Daniel Way, but I mean the stuff he does with Ghost Rider was fantastic. But Jason Aaron's Ghost Rider is like, get the guy writing Ghost Rider again somehow down the line, because it's just he was made to write Ghost Rider.
So cool. It was kind of like this, like southern, like dark gothic southern rock.
He beats a dude to not a dude. It's like another like angel or something to like almost death with a Bible. And I was like, that's the most Jason Aaron thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Just like this southern gritty like Ghost Rider stuck in a jail as Johnny Blaze, and he just like owns this guy. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I was always kind of struck how easy like it was for him to write things like the Incredible Hulk, and like, those first few issues, Original Sin, were phenomenal, I thought. And those first, those.
I mean, Thor, his when he started that was like, Thor: God of Thunder. That was like.
Oh, it's still good.
Killer story arc, and that one started off, I think, really strongly, and kind of lost my.
Yeah, I kept with Thor. I like Thor. For me, the thing that kind of the big thing that dropped off for him was Original Sin. But honestly, most event books kind of drop off for me. They have a hell of a premise. And then it's like, oh, we have to wrap this up and kind of keep the status quo, but say that this mattered somehow. But yeah, I was always kind of surprised he was able to write, Astonishing Wolverine and Spider-Man and stuff like that. Yet coming from, because I had started out reading like it made sense for him to write Wolverine and Ghost Rider really well, because that was within his wheelhouse. I never thought those bigger cosmic characters were, and he has proved me wrong, which is good. I like to be wrong. Kind of, sort of, maybe not really. All right, so I think this has been a good episode of catching up with Chris, Jake, and Sam and Corey. And thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and the pizza and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and feel free to call in anytime.
Sure thing.
Once you're back on the West Coast.
I think we can all agree we'll do it digitally now instead of by phone, because
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I think a lot
worked,
of it also is like, it's tough because I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's probably why I don't listen to a lot of music. But you guys have great sound quality, and that's something that like.
Aw, thanks.
No, really, like there are some podcasts I'm like, God damn it, like I can't listen to them because they're so difficult. But so that I think that's why that call was so rough, is we're used to like being able to hear you guys perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, at least Chris and Jake sound good. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been another installment of Catching Up with Chris, Jake, and Sam with our special guest Corey. And read a lot of Image comic books, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Thank you.